everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. My name is Soleil and I garden in a Zone 5B in mid-Michigan, and it's a gorgeous day out today, so I thought it was time for another weekly garden tour. And I'm excited that everything is looking as well as it does today because we actually had a frost advisory last night. It was kind of a surprise because it's been looking so nice and nothing was in the 10-day forecast. But it only got down to about 38, so it wasn't actually a problem in my area. So everything's looking really nice, I think, so far. So let's take a look. So starting over here in the fountain bed, we have a garden that is full of beautiful chocolate chip ajuga that is blooming. And it makes quite a statement this time of year. Although I have to say, I think it's only in about 80% bloom. So I expect in the next 2 days that it will be 100%. But it is absolutely stunning. I love the color of the cool blue that it puts out. And we have lots of buds just covering all of these salvia that are amongst them. You can see we still have some primroses blooming over in the distance there. They are looking lovely. And as we sweep through this bed, we still have the pasque flower with a couple of blooms on it. Some of them are going over to seed, and they look a bit like the clematis bloom seed heads. Aren't they beautiful as they catch the sun's rays? In fact, we actually have a salvia over here. This is the azure snow variety that is beginning to open up. And you'll see it actually has purple and white in the blooms. Very beautiful. What's always interesting to me is how throughout the years gardens can look so different even with some of the same plants as they age, thrive, or change according to the weather each year. We also have lots of deutzia shrubs throughout the garden. And as you can see, the buds have continued to grow, but we don't have any flowers opening yet. I do expect those to probably begin bursting open tomorrow. Now in the fountain garden bed over here, that actually has the fountain in it, everything is looking amazing, and the azalea is showy right now. It's definitely on the other end of its prime. Probably 2 days ago it was at 100%, but today I still think it's looking rather beautiful. And we also have the mugo pine here, and it has some gorgeous tall candles. I've been pruning around the outside of it to keep it from becoming a little too wide. I want to keep it within the bounds of the stones that are around it. And probably next year, I'll be starting to cap the height on it by trimming the candles that are new growth. Now along this garden path right here as we enter the garden, the superstar spireas are looking really pretty, and we have lots of buds all over those. We're getting some buds also on the roses here, but just look at the colors. The buds are covered in this beautiful maroon foliage, and we have lots of blooms also that are getting ready on the mock orange back here, but I'm also seeing some aphids. I'm just going to leave them alone because typically they go away within a couple of weeks after nature has had their way with them. And indeed, I've seen some ants that are milking them, and then they will probably be eaten by something else that is in my garden. It is definitely one of the benefits of gardening with nature is there's much less need for using pesticides and things. Unless it's something that isn't native to your area, sometimes then there are no natural predators. Isn't this gorgeous in the corner? These hostas have really filled in since I planted them last year. And we have the Diamond Lake hosta over here, which is getting much fuller as well. In this garden bed, we're starting to see all of the sweet woodruff in bloom. The beautiful dainty white flowers. They mix so pretty with some of the ajuga that is also throughout this garden bed as a ground cover. And they also look really nice next to the aronia blooms. This aronia has been blooming now for just a few days. And it's not a long bloomer, but it has beautiful fall color. Also along this garden bed, one of the things that I'm excited for is the holly. I've been noticing that it's putting on some new growth since we transplanted it in this spot. And it's probably hard to see on this camera, but it's a very dark foliage when it starts as a bud, and then it will leaf out green. So I think that it's going to be happy in this new spot. We have tons and tons of buds on our Sicilian honey garlic right here. And this used to be part of the Allium family. I can't remember which family they've put it in now, but it just looks like these straight up shooting arrows, doesn't it? And then they will open and almost look like a firework as they spray over and hang down. The clematis is just filled out already. It's definitely getting up to the top of this trellis, and I love it. I love as the bare areas of the fence become covered in vines or covered in foliage. I think that is so beautiful. And you can see just how dense the heucheras are getting to be now. And this 9-bark is a little double 9-bark, and it's coming in between these two arborvitaes, and it has buds all over it. So this one will be lighting up probably in next video as well. The blooms on the 9-bark don't last very long, maybe only a week, but they are beautiful when they are out. And just look at the color on the heuchera in this area. Isn't that amazing? It just glows. Also looking awesome is the viburnum. I was so afraid that I was not going to be able to show you these beautiful blooms, you guys, but we did get through last night and it didn't get too cold, and they are all here. Isn't that fantastic? We still have some that are opening over here. I mean, it is just covered from head to toe, and if I had not trimmed this up into a tree form, there would be blooms from top to bottom, I'm sure. But I think it looks just beautiful with these barberry, and I can't help but really enjoy the colors when I look at it from this angle, because there are so many blooms on this samurai lungwort now. Isn't that the prettiest color of blue against the silver foliage? Just kind of tucked back in under there as a ground cover. But I just love that combination. And there are flowers all over this holly, so maybe we'll get some berries this year. And this part of the long border, I don't know if you can tell, but we have the chives with blooms just getting ready to open. The buds are smothering the tops of each and every one of them. We have more deutzia that are waiting to bloom. The daisies are coming up. And this rose, I think I counted maybe 25 buds on this climbing Eden rose, which will definitely be, if they all open, the most prolific it has been since I've had it. So I'm really excited for that, because it was my hope that it would really take over and begin to cover up this fence, and it has. And I love the way that it shapes as, you know, I grow it in this arching habit. We're starting to see this fireside 9-bark put out some growth. Now, I planted this last fall, so this is its first year in the garden. So it will probably not do a whole lot this year, but I do expect to get some blooms on it and for it to leaf out and look a little fuller. Here are all of the buds on the chives. Just look at that, and aren't they beautiful? I am thinking about, you know, coming through and maybe dividing these and replanting them, because some of them are getting rather large. But right now I think they're absolutely beautiful. We have some Muckgenia right here. This is a cross between the Virginia and the Muckdenia. Cute little plant. And you can see the lilies are starting to bush out down here, and I see a lot of wonderful growth on these hydrangeas. We have a couple of paniculata hydrangeas between the arborvitaes here. The one on the left is the Diamond Rouge, and the one on the right is a Limelight. I planted the Diamond Rouge a couple years ago, but the Limelight was new last year, so it'll be fun to see how those do and to kind of compare their blooms over time. And then on the end we have a little lime hydrangea. This garden bed is really starting to liven up. I mean, we saw some color last week, but if I just kind of pan down here and look at it, you guys can tell what a difference just a week can make in the garden in terms of the amount of change that you can expect to see. I mean, look at all of the leaves on the redbud now. The blooms are pretty much spent. There's a few of them that are just hanging on at the end, but otherwise everything's really leafing out. These are the golden tiara hostas, and I think these have gotten so bushy and dense that I'm probably going to have to thin these out at the end of the year this year. I mean, my goodness, look how pretty they are. And the phlox has really come into its full bloom. We've got lots of height starting to come up in this garden with the variegated catchfly here. This is going to bloom pink. And then we have some dusky violet penstemon right here in front. The April night salvia, look at all of the buds on this. This one's coming. This one by next week is going to be in full bloom. We have some violas that are looking really amazing still. I can actually get away with growing these into the summer here if I keep them in partial shade to shade. I don't know how far south you can do that, but it's worth a try. You can get a little bit longer of a season out of them, I find. And I think these heucheras look amazing. They have really filled out, and they make quite the statement up against that lighter foliage that's variegated on the catchfly. You can start to really see some of the new growth on this weeping spruce too. I love how the color is that bright limey green. And such pops of color in here with all of the different contrasting colors between the blue and the limey yellow and the limey green. This foxglove is out of control. I mean, it is so big. I hope we get a lot of blooms on it, but that's what it looks like it's doing, is sending up just lots and lots of bloom spikes. It's incredible. And the pieris that is planted behind it has gotten so much new growth and looks so nice and healthy. I'm really impressed with that one. You can see the mega caramel heuchera here just keeps on getting bigger, and it will. It just is going to fill out this space and come right over those stones. And our heaven sent polemonium, or the Jacob's Ladder, is still blooming. It looks like it's about 50% done, but the color on it is really beautiful, and it blends in nicely with the lamium and the phlox and the brennera that are throughout this shade garden bed. You can see the heuchera here have really pushed their growth and their color, and just look at the Japanese maple now over there. Isn't that amazing? Such delicate looking foliage with the cut leaf. Now on my oak leaf hydrangeas, I'm really thrilled to report that we have buds really good buds that should contain blooms. I haven't seen this many on these since I installed them, and I think they have been in the ground for about 3 years, which is pretty much, you know, the case for many plants. I would say by the time you get to the 3rd year, you should be getting, you know, pretty much the full capacity of the plant each year from there on out. It's pretty amazing to me that this length of the garden has looked as good as it has. The blooms for the spring, because of the cool weather, I feel like have lasted a really long time. But we are getting towards the end. As you can tell, these lungwort blooms are fading. So within the next couple of days, those will go over. But as you can see, the hostas are really full now. Just amazing the amount of growth that they have put on. The maidenhair ferns are leafed out. We have buds on this oak leaf hydrangea as well. Things are looking really healthy, and I'm really excited to show that some of the rhododendrons are starting to bloom now. This one is coming out. It starts this really bright deep coral, and as it opens up it starts to fade to white, or I should say maybe a very light pink. And it goes awfully well with the little pink fizz tiarella blooms that we have coming now. Aren't those pretty and dainty? We have a few of them kind of tucked in amongst the hostas and the ferns. And this bleeding heart is huge, just massive with blooms all over it. And the Solomon seal is still blooming here. I love the look of that, just so drapey. Here's another rhododendron that is beginning to push its blooms. I'm going to be honest, I don't remember all of the names of the rhododendrons that I have, because to me, what's important is the color that they bloom. So I just like to think of them as purple or pink or white rhododendrons. I find if you go on Google, you can Google white rhododendron and it will come back with all sorts of different varieties, and you can find what you like. Isn't this a pretty hosta? That's the Crosa regale. Just look at the base-shaped habit of that growth with the wavy lines of the leaves. I have a feeling that one contributed to the Diamond Lake hosta variety. This clematis is still growing up along the fence. The deer haven't gotten to it yet, but I do have a pile of sticks that are supposed to be moved soon, so we'll see if, when those are gone, if they get in there. We have another bunch of really wonderful growth happening on this PRS. Just look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? It's so pretty. So much color. And I did actually end up taking out the green and white hostas, the rest of them. I looked at them for a couple of days and I just really wasn't happy with the look. What I'm hoping to do is actually to, you know, put a little bit more of the ajuga down in front of them as a ground cover, so we can pull some of this purple color down over in there, or something else, who knows. Sometimes I garden on a whim, but my favorite plant there is the hellebore, and the whole point was to ensure that they had space to grow. The green and white hostas, while they're pretty, they are not my favorite. And they were just kind of holding space and covering the ground until I found something I wanted to plant otherwise. And that's what I have with these hellebores. So we'll see how they do in this space. This hosta back here is going to get huge, so it's actually going to fill in a lot as well. The Japanese ferns are getting big, and you can see these pulmonarias are starting to go over also. But the ajuga is still going over here. still going all along this garden bed, and I think it looks beautiful. I know for some people it's kind of an aggressive plant, but in my area I find that it pulls out really easily and it doesn't grow so quickly that it takes over. You can see the colors of these variegated weigela kind of filling in and, you know, brightening up the space. We're going to get some blooms on this. This is a pink poppet weigela. And there will be some blooms as well on this 9-bark coming. But you can see that this Amber Jubilee 9-bark is starting to kind of fade and become a little bit of a deeper color. And it will do that as it warms up. So it'll turn a little bit more green during the summer and a little less orangey. Everything along this side of the shed is looking great. The phlox is full. We're getting these hostas up, and the coralberry shrubs are looking healthy and amazing. And one of my favorite spots right now is the half moon garden, because we get to see the beautiful color of the ajuga along this side. And this is the burgundy glow ajuga. It doesn't look very burgundy right now, but the foliage does have a bit of a burgundy glow and it's putting on new growth in the spring. And then we have this rose, high voltage rose with its beautiful new deep red growth, and then all of the ground cover phlox that is blooming. That just looks so pretty right now. Again, with the colors of the ajuga and this creeping phlox. The blueberry flowers are this pretty white. So many beautiful things to look at in this garden bed right now. And I think the ladies' mantle down at this end are going to bloom soon as well. I was kind of hoping to see them bloom alongside the ajuga because I think their limey green and yellow flowers would look really pretty with that. As we move into the potager, you can see things are really filling out along the edge here. And the number of blooms we have on the strawberries are just incredible. And some of the seeds I threw in here to grow Russian kale last fall have definitely seeded and are growing, so that's fun. Our pots are beginning to fill out, and I'm actually starting to see some of the ranunculus that I put into pots and in the brick garden that we'll see put on some bloom buds, so that's really cool to see. And then we have blooms, you guys, on these irises. Isn't that pretty? And along the same color line we have our Persian blue catmint, and we also have the cat's pajamas, so they are very, very similar plants and doing very well in there. I think we're going to start getting some blooms on the snapdragons in these pots and on the lobelia. And I just started getting some blooms on the sparky purple clematis. I couldn't remember the name of this in the last video. I don't know why, but it's called Sparky, and you can see why. Look at the little spikes on this flower. Isn't that pretty? It's such a different variety. And we're starting to get some buds on these irises. Now, they are not blooming yet. This one has some color at the tip, but that's about it. My lettuce is ready to start being harvested. Doesn't that look yummy and amazing? And we have a self-seeded columbine right here that I think is going to be pretty too. These irises smell amazing. I hope you guys can hear the birds during these videos and listen to them chirping and being happy. I still haven't planted this lady's head, you guys. It's coming. I think this weekend I'm going shopping for some plants. I'm volunteering at a local plant sale at Michigan State University, so I probably will pick up some plants when I'm there. And we have these peonies. They are budded up and ready to go. We've got buds on this catmint and buds on this dark horse weigela. And this clematis is all the way up to the top of the trellis as well. I have to say I am thoroughly enjoying this shrub. This is a fire gold spirea. And let me just get at it from the right angle so you can see all of the blooms starting to come forth. This is like I think a lot of people think of these as a bridal wreath or bridal veil spirea. But this one has a little bit of a limey tint of yellow to it. It's just so pretty. I'm so happy I moved it here. It seems a lot happier. You can see the large root geranium in this garden bed is starting to flower. This only flowers for about a week, but it sure is pretty when it flowers, and it has a wonderful scent. The samurai lungwort is blooming in this garden bed as well with that beautiful deep purple blue. And we have some more juga throughout this bed. And as we spin around to take a look at their bird bath garden bed, that one is flushing out quite well. And you can see in this brick bed, everything is filling out, and I did add some Verbena brunariensis. This is the little seedling that I grew that happened to sprout in some of my seed trays this year. And here is a ranunculus bud. I think that one looks like it's going to be like a light pinky white color. So yeah, everything seems to be growing really well in this garden bed also. Now, I have tried many years to try to get rid of the lily of the valley. Some people absolutely love it. I think it just takes over. And I'm not really that big of a fan, but I'm fine with it now. I'm just leaving it. And we're actually having a really beautiful year for it. There's lots of flowers this year, and it smells amazing. They make a really nice cut flower also if you're into that. So this viburnum out here did also get a few blooms on it. This is its first full year in the garden, so it's pretty surprising to see that, but that just must mean it really likes its spot. And you can see now how the low-grow sumac on either side of this barberry are starting to fill in their space here. Now, something you can't see very well is this PG panicle hydrangea. I planted this last year, and it's kind of small, so it gets hidden, but that will grow nice and tall. So we're going to have a nice statement on this corner as that grows bigger. This is just a euphorbia, this dark foliage plant with its teeny tiny flowers. And then you can see our blue shadow fothergilla has some pretty bottle brush blooms on it. I should not try to say that too many times in a row. But I think that's super lovely. You can see just how lush this shade bed gets. The foliage is so large, and we still have some hostas that are really, you know, working on pushing their way out. Some of those are the larger ones that really do get quite immense. For example, just the size of the leaf on this hosta back here, I mean, it's bigger than my head. And the maidenhair ferns here too are leafing out and looking so beautiful. All of the hellebore flowers are pretty much spent in, you know, making their seeds right now. So they will spit out soon and be waiting to come up for me next year. I do have some Monarda also in this garden bed right here that I planted at the end of the year last year. This is a very wet spot because it's where the gutter or downspout is, so I do have a bit of a trouble getting things to grow here with it being wet and kind of shady as well, but that seems to be coming back, so I'm happy with that. This is my little hellebore seedling area, so these are all the ones that I had rescued and I had potted up. Each one of these has 2 hellebores in it, so there's a lot. It'll be fun to see what kinds we get. I really am hoping to plant some of these out on the way back hill, fill in that woodland garden further. And you can see this is another maiden hair fern, and the Allium in the back here is really in bloom. Then I think our front porch plantings are doing good and, you know, still making it nice and cheery up here. I'm really enjoying them. And I did get some of that dichondra in this front basket. So as that begins to grow and spill over the edges, I think that's going to look really pretty. Well, let's take a look at the sun garden bed now. We have lots of dianthus along the edge of this garden bed, and this is where I'm going to be watching as plants come up, because you can see this one is a Picotee variety, and I want to just replace those with the straight colored ones that are not Picotee. And so as I see those, I will dig them up and replace them. And I am getting some blooms now on these irises. I'm so excited. It's just starting to push through. And back behind it, I don't know if you can see, but we have buds for the Globemaster Alliums that are in between these boxwoods. Lots of buds on the salvia that are throughout this garden bed, and you can see the black scallop ajuga at the base of these orange rocket barberries is blooming a very deep purple. Now I don't have quite as many buds showing yet on this oak leaf hydrangea. This one gets a lot more sun than the others, so I think it takes more energy for it to bloom, but I do see some, so it will be interesting to see the difference in how they bloom. But look at these alliums, you guys. These are the Allium carativiense. Probably my favorite allium ever, okay? And then if we just look to the left a little bit of this Veronica, we have an entire aisle of them. Aren't they gorgeous? And they definitely attract the pollinators too. And we can sneak up on this bumblebee right here as he pollinates it. Isn't that fun? Aren't they pretty? Oh, I just love those. Love, love, love. I hope they continue to come back in these spots. Last year I planted them and I lost a couple of them. I think it got just too wet because the soil in here, being a new bed, is really heavy clay, and just I don't think it drained well enough over the winter. So I'm crossing my fingers that this year they do better. So again, we have some Veronicas right here. We have some Veronica along this garden bed back behind those alliums. And we have even more alliums that are tall, the Purple Sensation variety. So those are beginning to dot the landscape as well. It's amazing to me just how many different kinds of allium there actually are. All of the different varieties, but for sure those carativiense have the most beautiful foliage of any. I love the Purple Sensation blooms because they're such a deep, deep bloom, and they're very prolific, but their foliage is a little less desirable, right? It's something that would be nice to have something in front of hiding it. but nevertheless, I enjoy the blooms. Now, an interesting thing just to point out here on these variegated boxwood is that the new growth does come in very much looking like it is a solid green, but if you have these and you're new to them, do not fear. They will all be variegated. It just takes some time for them to really look like they're variegated as they grow on. It's the new growth. As it hardens off, it will change. We have some salvia down here too that is just starting to bring its blooms up. And so if we look back a little bit, this is where we're going to bring out a little bit more of that bed over there. I'm so excited for that project. Hopefully we'll be able to get that started soon. This is all starting to fill in under the garden tree, or excuse me, under the cherry tree. And we have more veronica up front here. This is the veronica we transplanted after dividing it last year, and isn't it amazing how full it is already? It really seems to like its new home. I feel like I might be able to get another bit of it over here. Yeah, just kind of create more of a drift of it if it really likes its spot. Sometimes we have to listen to our plants and let them design our garden for us. They tell us what they like, and a healthy plant always looks 100 times better than a plant that's struggling in the garden. The front continues to fill in here as well. You can see the bobo hydrangeas by the barberries are leafing out. And we have the deutzias that are up front, but they are not quite yet blooming either. Very similar to the ones in the back garden with their dainty little buds. And then we have some additional irises here that are putting out their buds and getting ready to bloom. So hopefully we'll have more irises to look at next week. And those we just planted last year, so I've not seen any of them bloom yet, so we can look at them together. Well, here we are in the front lawn border, and I think it's looking really nice. That ajuga, that is the black scallop ajuga, has continued to bloom, and it really is beautiful. I just love how it glows against its deep dark foliage. And it's only going to continue to spread this year. So hopefully it will begin to really fill out this entire garden bed. Now I'm just watching the blooms in this garden bed. You can see we actually have some on the chives now. So we're starting to get some blooms there. And the viburnums definitely have much bigger buds all over them. And I think it is going to bloom at about the same time as the gorgeous elderberry here, because we definitely have lots of buds in here. That's what the buds look like in here. One there, see one back in here. So they're all at the end of every one of these branches, and they do get large and spread. See all of those buds all over this viburnum? Just waiting to explode with some color. The gara is looking really pretty, you guys, with its green tips and its dark red foliage. And we have some little seed heads happening on this festuca here. This is called True Blue. And I love how it looks with that ajuga. We've got lots of buds on our peonies up front here. So we should be getting dark blooms and white blooms. Beautiful. Now the blooms are spent from this weeping crab. I did do a little bit of a trim job on it just to kind of get some of the long stems off and encourage it to grow upwards. And you can see that it's beginning to make its fruit. The fruit on this tree is also really pretty. And this garden bed is getting ready to put out some chive blooms. Not a whole lot of blooms in this bed right now, but they are on their way. All of the daffodils have pretty much gone over. They were absolutely beautiful when we had them. But we're about to get our May night salvia and our caradonna salvia. You can see we have amazing buds. And this one has a really beautiful purple stem on it. So that's the caradonna, and then we have the May night salvia right here that is smothered in buds. I think that one's going to begin to open probably tomorrow. And you can see we've got some chives that are starting to open in this garden bed as well. And it's just very, very pretty. Now, this garden bed is greening up for sure. The boxwoods are putting out their fresh growth, and we have the lining plant in here is the liatris. That's Liatris spicata, and it is also referred to sometimes as gay feather. And that one blooms like a pinkish purple color, and it's absolutely beautiful when it all blooms at the same time. You can see we're getting lots of foliage on the hydrangeas and these royal ferns. So these royal ferns, they grow up from their fiddleheads, and then they begin to spread and open, just as you see this one doing, and coming forward. And they will come probably out to the edge of where this drain comes. So it's really quite amazing the growth that they have. Ah, the robin's yelling at me. They do have a nest up right up in here, so they're not happy with me. But I do love the way that this garden looks right now. Honestly, I haven't seen it look this good in the spring for a while. These ice bog rosemary didn't bloom much last year, but for them to be putting on this many of those light pink blooms is just so fun. I love it. Lots of spring blooms here, and we won't have blooms the whole season. This is just what we're going to get because there aren't any late bloomers here other than the hydrangea, and that will come much later. But this snowball bush is absolutely stunning, and I'm really glad I planted it here and that it likes the space, because like I said, this can be a hard place for me to find plants that like it. And I'll be, you know, pruning this back after it blooms, because I really want to have it stay as a tree form, and I want it to fill out and become more dense. And I also want to keep it at a height at which I can prune it. This can get up to 12 feet tall, but I want to keep it at about 6 feet. So that's what we're aiming for. And I still am enjoying the tree form that we've done with this burning bush. It's definitely a unique look. You don't see this very often, but it was taking up a lot of space, and I wanted to open up the bottom to be able to do some more ground cover type plantings. And the blue moon flax here definitely lights up the corner until these hostas are able to come up and fill in the space. Well everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video today. I feel like sometimes on these garden tours I get a little long-winded, or the videos get a little long, but I want to show you a little bit of everything because there is so much to show, especially right now with all of the changes every single week being so significant. Thanks again for joining me and for taking a stroll through my garden. I hope your garden's waking up and that you're having fun and getting out. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye!